Good morning. My name is Holly Hendrickson, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of your UUI Board of Trustees. If you are here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting to know you. We invite everyone present here in the sanctuary today to join us for our in-person coffee hour out in the social hall immediately following the service. We're also having a pitch-in lunch this morning and some activities right after church, so please stay and join us. There's plenty of food for everyone. During our service, there's a time for sharing the joys and sorrows of our lives with one another. Cards for sharing your joys or sorrows are on the table by the entrance to the sanctuary. And we ask that you pick them up and fill them out prior to that section of the service. Rooted in the values of Unitarian Universalism, we covenant to be a congregation where people of all generations find meaning and purpose. We work to be a congregation that champions justice, advances equity, fosters transformation, embraces pluralism, lives in sacred interdependence, practices generosity and love, and nurtures future generations. Together, we strive to create a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world through collective action and shared ministry, committed to living our values and holding one another in covenant. We're so glad you're here with us today. We hope you find this service inspiring and meaningful.
Good morning. I am Maria Renner, and my pronouns are she and her. I am honored to serve our congregation today as worship associate. A lit chalice is a symbol of our faith as Unitarian Universalists, connecting us across time and distance to a legacy of love, truth, and shared purpose. Today, we invite Christine Farber to come and light the chalice. She is leading our rummage sale coming up at the end of June. As we light our chalice in the sanctuary, I invite those on Zoom to light a chalice or a candle and type your location in the chat. Our chalice lighting and opening words today are by Esther Hurlbert. It is not always easy to find love at the center. There's not a set of easy instructions numbered 1 through 7 or 8. It is not always easy to find love at the center. Today in Covenant, we celebrate our living tradition, which invites us to take deep breaths of fresh air into the newness of every day so our minds, hearts, and spirits will be continually nourished. It is not always easy to find love at the center. So for today, we gather in Covenant to celebrate the reality that love is at the core of our beings and that love will guide us if we open ourselves to the challenges which love requires of us. May we accept this challenge with dignity and grace. Amen.
Please rise in body and spirit as we join together in singing hymn 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We'll be singing this in a round. There will be 3 different parts. Part 1 and Part 2, you'll be sticking with the sheet music. Part 1, you'll just as is. Part 2, you'll come in 4 measures later, just on Come, Come, Whoever You Are. And then the people in the back will serve as our drone. And Dawn, would you mind teaching them the drone part?
Right. So this is an exciting thing to teach you all. The drone part of this song, the words are, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times. And you just repeat it over and over, and it's this very low part. Can we, I will try and demonstrate it. Though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times. Very nice.
All right. So people in the back, if you wanted to go on that drone part, that'd be great. This will be my part 1. This will be my part 2. Whenever you're ready, Jill. We're gonna do it through once, all together, and then 3 times as a round. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover, unbelieving, voices looking, men of despair. Come yet again, come. Part 1.
Would you please join me now in saying our covenant, which is on the screen and also in your bulletin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. And now let us say our covenant in Spanish. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos unos a otros. Este es nuestro pacto. Please be seated. Our congregation is a lively community with many opportunities to participate. Here are a few announcements for today, but please check your order of service and e-blast for more. The rummage sale is coming on June 28th. This is an important fundraiser for UUI. For more information, see Christine in the social hall afterwards or check the e-blast for more. Everyone is invited to stay today for the all-church pitch-in, even if you are a visitor or if you forgot to bring a dish. All are welcome. And stay after the pitch-in for our all-ages book discussion.
One of the ways we embody our covenant with one another is through the sharing of the joys and sorrows of our lives together. This is the time in the service where we have a chance to do that. As the music plays in just a few minutes, I invite people in the sanctuary to come forward and drop a stone into the bowl if something is on your mind or your heart today. Please use both sides of the table. And if you've written your joy or sorrow on a card, please leave it in the basket that's on the table, and we will read it out loud. Please note that the cards are by the entrance to the sanctuary for easy pickup when you come in. For those of you who are on Zoom, we invite you to use the chat feature. Please put in all caps either joy or sorrow, plus your name and pronouns at the beginning of what you are sharing if you would like it to be read aloud in the sanctuary. You can also symbolically drop a stone into the bowl by typing drop stone or just DS into the chat. Let us share the joys and sorrows of our lives with one another. I begin today with personal and a communal joy. Next week begins the 3-week cultural and language immersion trip to Cuernavaca, Mexico, that 5 Unitarian Universalists from 2 congregations will be embarking upon. Please hold Maria, Carol, Paula, Jenny, and I in your thoughts and prayers, as we will undoubtedly be experiencing the challenges and discomfort that come through growth and transformation. We look forward to bringing back our learnings to share with you. Susan shares the joy that she's proud of Avery for finishing 1st grade and winning the Critical Thinker of the Year award. A true UU. Molly Ann shares the sorrow that Molly Ann's best friend had an injured foot and now needs crutches. Carla shares the joy that she is excited for the 20th anniversary concert of Pride of Indie Bands tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Broadway United Methodist Church. Carla shares that they have been working hard on their pieces. Your support matters, visibility is important, and that Carla is excited for their performance. An anonymous person shares a sorrow that I think many of us share. Very sad to hear of the passing of Carol Kirk. She was such a beautiful, gentle soul who will be deeply missed. Cindy shares the joy that Bill Marsh, after being in the hospital over 2 weeks, is moving to rehab and definitely on the mend. Ray shares a sorrow. He's afraid that no one will go to the commons after church to pick up plants and seeds today. That might be a reminder. Jean shares the joy of seeing brilliant stars and the Milky Way during a rafting trip on the Colorado River in Canyonlands National Park last week. Jean says she got to see a totally dark sky. Though they may not be shared today, we know there are many more joys and sorrows that remain on our hearts and in our minds. Let us pause now for a moment of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, be with us during this time where some of us are so afraid and angry and full of sorrow. Be with those who protest, demanding that they be treated with dignity as human beings with inherent rights. Be with those who may be asked to act in ways that are counter to the vows that they take. Strengthen them in their resolve and let them know that they are not alone. O mystery of the universe, we ask your blessings too upon those of us facing challenges in our own lives, health challenges, grieving losses, fear of what might be next. And still we know that even at its most fearful and sorrowful, joy can still be found. We are so grateful for the moments of learning, of connecting with beloved friends and family, for those moments of new discovery. And we are grateful too for this community to which we can bring all these joys and sorrows and fears and know that we are not alone. Blessed be, and amen.
For the meditation on breathing, hymn number 1009, Jill is going to play it through once on the piano as an intro for us, then we'll sing it through 3 times. If you are so moved, you can join on the parts if you want to. When I breathe out love.
to say, I can't help it. I just can't help it. Has everybody seen Reverend Dawn's amazing shoes? I have been nerding out about these. She has rainbow soles. I mean, we all theoretically have rainbow soles, but she has them on her shoes. It's so cool. So now is a time in our congregation when anyone of any age who likes a view from the cheap seats can come up front. Please feel free to join me. I am lonely without you. So, and I have some slides today. So we'll see if our slides will join me. Aha. Lovely. So, this looks familiar, right? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. We say this every week in English and in Spanish, and it is our covenant. But here's the sneaky thing. It's not UUI's only covenant. I know it's shocking. You don't sound totally shocked, though, actually, if I'm being honest. But it's true. And there's a specific group in this church that understands that better than most other groups, and that is our children and youth. And I'll explain about that in a minute. You see, if the covenant that we say in church was a hashtag, it would be squad goals. It's who we want to be when we're being our very best selves, right? It's like sitting down to a wonderful holiday dinner, and we're all dressed up, and we're feeling warm and happy, and it's a sacred moment, and we're all together. But if we're being real, there's a flip side to that, right? The part where we're hopping on one foot trying to get our dress-up shoes on, the part where we're in the car and we've left the house and we're like, what do you mean you left the food that we were bringing in the refrigerator and we have to turn around and we have to go back for it right now, right? And sometimes there are squabbles because we're one of the kids in the back and we don't want to sit in the middle on the hump, right? And we're not dwelling together in peace when we're having that argument. We're not seeking the truth in love when we're like frustrated and we're like arguing about which GPS app that we should use. And if somebody starts telling us to dwell together in peace at that moment, we are probably going to tell them that like, now is not the time, right? And that's kind of understandable. What we need in that moment is a different kind of covenant, one that will hold us in the difficult moments, the in-between moments. And the kids really know about those. We have a whole nother set of covenants over in the RE building. And okay, I can hear the grown-ups' wheels spinning right now. Can you hear that little whirring noise? Because some of them are sitting there and they're thinking, you mean the rules, right? Like, no, I do not mean the rules. No. So when we make covenants in RE, who makes them? Oh, everybody. We all do, right? And like when I say we all, like if you're a kid or a youth right now, do you mind standing up as you're willing or able and just like waving your hands around so people can see? I see all the youth sitting together and they're like, I'm not doing that. That's cute and everything. You can ask, right? And that's actually a perfect illustration of my point. You can sit down. Thank you so much. Because if you know any of these people, then you know that they are very different from one another. And sometimes my remote control does not cooperate. I have further proof, but I can't get there. All right, we're just going to dwell in faith. So, there we go. Okay, further proof. Like we've got a child chasing Dawn around the sanctuary in this picture, right? Like these people are not all the same. I can't just impose a covenant on this whole group, right? And say, here's what it is. It would fail immediately. And again, that makes total sense. They are UUs, and they don't have anybody to practice on right now but us, right, when they engage in social protest. So everybody needs to be involved in the covenant making. So we did 3 different levels of OWL this year and 3 different levels of RE. Let's take a look at 3 of our covenants for our groups side by side. Did these look the same to you? Right? They're really beautiful reflections of the groups from which they came. Now, we do sometimes start with something called a base covenant. And that middle one there, you can see the base covenant in there. And it includes some of the core stuff that either like comes up almost every time we make a covenant, or it's stuff that has to do with our safe church policy. And it allows those of us who are supporting that covenanting process to be really honest and upfront about stuff that needs to be in there, instead of trying to like talk people around to where they think it was their idea to put it in there, right? And also kids can just smell that kind of manipulation like a mile away. And they don't like it any better than you do. And when a covenanting process is fake like that, then the resulting covenant is kind of pointless, right? Like it doesn't really mean anything. There's nothing more real than a community covenant if you do it right. And you can see there have been items that have been added here, like include youth in the planning process, right? There have been additions to do with people's sensory needs and other things like that. And that's the other really important thing about community covenants. They are alive. See, if we were just a bunch of like squishmallows sitting around in a circle like this, we could have the same covenant all year, right? And it would be fine. These guys do not get up to much. So it would be no problem. But if we're really getting to know each other, if we're really being our messy selves, if we're doing real stuff, then we're gonna bump heads sometimes. Like, we're gonna learn new things about the group, what works for that group and what doesn't. And, we might even find out new things about ourselves, like that adults have a tendency to try to steer conversations, like things like that. It would be really silly if we made all of these important discoveries and then we never changed our covenant. So we change it as many times as we need to. And sometimes we end up with something really transcendent and beautiful. And I am here to tell you, 2 very seasoned youth leaders cried happy tears during this covenanting process right here. So, participating in a community covenant means figuring things out together. And when you choose to agree to that and you really try, you're still gonna make mistakes. Who here has ever made a mistake at church? Anybody? Oh, come on, be honest. It's okay, nobody's looking to see if your hand is up, right? But your mistake becomes a chance to keep your promise to the group to figure things out together. And each time you do the work to get back into covenant, you create a little more trust from everybody that the community actually works. It is one of the coolest things that UUs do, and that's why grown-ups should try it. So, we are now going to sing our way out to our RE small groups where we may discover things that we need to add to our covenant.
That squishmallow shot with all the squishmallows around the chalice cracked me up. Sarah's amazing. I often never know where she's going to go with things. Like perhaps some of you, I have had a few crises of faith in my life. Have you had a crisis of faith? Okay, a lot of you, right? The first came when I was a teenager. I remember singing, "Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world." And I believed it. But then my family started going to a non-denominational, fundamentalist, evangelical church. And There, I was taught that if those children didn't say the right words or believe the right things, that God would damn them to eternal suffering in hell, even if they had never heard of Jesus. And I just could not make sense of that. I couldn't reconcile the image of a loving God with the doctrine that condemns children for being born into the wrong faith or family or part of the world. And so I stopped considering myself a Christian. I didn't believe the right things anymore. That was my first crisis of faith. It was a crisis of belief. The second came years later in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. In our congregations, there's not only room for doubt and questioning and an evolution of our beliefs, it's actually encouraged. We're all searching for truth and meaning. This is so liberating. But a few years in, I noticed that how the service auction worked at that church that I was attending was not in line with what I believed our values were. You see, the only social events that the church had was those events offered through the service auction, and they were all very expensive. Lavish dinners, vacation home escapes, wine tastings. If you couldn't afford them, you were left out of the social life of the congregation. And if you tried to join some of the less expensive or more simple activities, those got bought up quickly by the people who had money as well. And so it felt like you had to buy your way into belonging to the church. That disconnect, that gap between our values and our practices, was a crisis of faith for me. I had to question whether to stay a Unitarian Universalist or not. Obviously, I did. And then came 2017, when our Black, Indigenous, and people of color siblings of faith were calling out white supremacy culture within Unitarian Universalism, not out there in the world, but here in our own institutions and our practices. Not that we were white supremacists, but that we were practicing white supremacy culture. Those of us who raised this concern weren't attacking us. They were inviting us into truth and into transformation. And yet I watched so many UUs, people I loved and admired, and they just shut it down. No, we're not, they said, defensive, dismissive. It was like they were plugging their ears and closing their eyes and shaking their heads, denying the truth and the lived experiences of other people who are saying, this has been my experience here in our congregations. It broke my heart and was a crisis not of belief or belonging, but of integrity. I didn't walk away from Unitarian Universalism, but it took a concerted effort to stay. And in that staying, I realized something. In some religious traditions, the crisis of faith comes when belief breaks. But in Unitarian Universalism, the crisis of faith comes when relationship breaks, when we fail one another, or when we fail to live up to our ideals and values, or when we fail to live up to how we say we're going to treat people. Not surprisingly, different religions focus on different things. Some religious traditions emphasize right belief, orthodoxy. Others emphasize right action, doing the correct rituals and following the right rules. In Unitarian Universalism, our center isn't belief or rule following. Our center is relationship. Right relationship with each other, with our values, with the communities that we're a part of, and with the world that we're trying to help heal. Former UUA president and now minister just right down the road in Bloomington, whichever way that is, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray said it over and over during her time as UUA president. She said, the heart of our faith is not agreement in belief, it is the promise to stay in relationship. But she wasn't the first to say it. In fact, our Unitarian ancestors, the Congregationalists of early New England, they believed that a church wasn't built on shared doctrine, but on freely chosen covenant. Hundreds of years ago, they said you don't have to agree on every belief in order to belong. You just have to be willing to make promises about how you'll be together, how we will be together, and then keep coming back to those promises. Meanwhile, our Universalist forebears offered a theology of radical inclusion, that no one is left behind, that every soul is worthy, that love holds us all. The Universalists didn't always use the word covenant, but they lived it. Their faith was based on relationship, a relationship that was grounded in dignity and grace and accountability to one another. So when we say that Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith, when we claim that we're bound together not by belief, but by the promises that we make to each other, this is not something new, but is something that is grounded in our heritage of making promises to one another, to work, to be in right relationship. While covenant is an old word, an ancient word, right relationship, this is a newer phrase, at least in Unitarian Universalist spaces. And I often hear people ask, what does right relationship even mean? Well, I can tell you, it's not just about being polite, and it's not about getting along. Right relationship means showing up in ways that honor the humanity, the dignity, the interdependence of everyone and everything involved. The term draws from indigenous traditions, restorative justice practices, and ecological theology, where right relationship isn't just between people, it's also between people and the earth, between people and other life on this planet, between people and the systems that we create, between people and our communities, between people today and people of the past, between people today and people of tomorrow. To be in right relationship means tending to how we live in this world and tending to how we treat each other at coffee hour, because the habits that we practice in our interpersonal relationships, like listening deeply, taking responsibility, and staying present in discomfort, these are the same habits that we need to be in right relationship with the land, our communities, with our past, with our future. And so when we break our promises, when we fail to live up to our values or treat each other the way we say that we want to treat each other, then we are out of right relationship. But covenant, the container, remains. If covenant reflects the promises that we make, then right relationship is how we live those promises. It is covenant made real, enacted. The Reverend Erica Barron says it beautifully. They say, the words of our covenant are like a map. The words of the covenant are like a map, but the covenant itself is the terrain with all its swamps and peaks and dense forests. The words help us find our way. Sit with that imagery just for a moment. The covenant isn't the map, right? The covenant is what the map is describing. Erica says, the words can never fully capture the complexity of the landscape that we are moving through together. I love this image. It reminds us that covenant isn't something you laminate and hang on the wall. It's not the words. It's not just something that you recite each week and call it done. It's something you practice. It's something that you embody. It's something you tend and something that you return to. And like any real terrain, it's often messy and confusing, and sometimes we get lost. And so there's another metaphor that often speaks to me when I think about covenant, and that is the metaphor of jazz music. Covenant, like jazz, isn't about playing the same notes every time. It's about staying attuned to the deeper rhythm, the shared key of our values. It's a kind of sacred improvisation, listening closely, adjusting with care, and trusting that even in dissonance, something beautiful can emerge. And sometimes, when we get lost or when we hurt each other, when we fall out of right relationship, we need help finding our way back to the path or back to the music. And this is where accountability comes in, not as punishment, but as the practice of returning. In a covenantal community, accountability is not the opposite of love, it is love. It's how we tell the truth about broken promises and stay anyway, whether it is a covenant with each other or with our values or with our community. When someone calls me back into right relationship, it's not because they want me gone or think I'm bad, it's because they think I still belong. I am still a part of this community. That we still belong to each other. Because covenant is not a contract where if one clause is broken, the whole thing is null and void. Instead, covenant is about how we as a community stay attuned to the bigger picture of who we want to be and how we want to be together. Now, to do this well, to live into our covenant, we sometimes need perspective. And so part of our sacred task is to climb the fire tower from time to time, to look out all over the terrain and notice how things are changing. Notice the patterns. Notice how erosion may have occurred in some place. And so covenant, as Sarah said, needs to be alive and updated. What's smoldering? What's blooming? Where are the paths eroding? Where is new growth emerging? This is how we tend covenant, not reactively, but with intention, with care, with enough perspective to respond. And when we do that, when we pay attention and stay curious, when we keep our covenants alive, something very powerful can happen. Because here is the wild and hopeful thing. If we can survive the heartbreak that comes from covenant, from those moments of fracture or failure, if we can stay and wrestle and keep loving a community in all its messiness, like I did after the service auction, like many of us did after 2017, we often come on the other side with something even stronger, so much stronger than belief. We come out with commitment and conviction, with a deeper understanding of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. And even when things are hard, even with a renewed connection to the values and principles of our faith, we come out of it stronger. Our children, they know this already. In religious education, as Sarah said, they build covenant and revise them on their own, not just as a ritual, but as a real way of being together. And they call each other back into right relationship when covenant is broken without difficulty. They're used to it. Their muscles around covenant and right relationship are so strong. When we're trying to be in community with people, messy, honest, curious people, we need a way to name our shared promises and values and keep coming back to them. And so we do this in our religious education spaces for adults as well, our chalice circles, our adult RE classes. We write covenants. We ask, how do we want to be together? And in a whole congregation of nearly 300 people, covenant gets more complex. That's why UUI has multiple covenants. We have the covenants that are time limited in our adult RE spaces and our chalice circles. We also have the aspirational covenant, the one we say every week that reminds us who we strive to be at our best. Love is the spirit of this church. And we have a behavioral covenant revised by the board last year, but first implemented over 10 years ago in this congregation, that grounds that aspirational covenant in practice. It names how we want to treat one another, especially when things are hard. Copies of the behavioral covenant will be by the door after the service and will be going on our website later this summer in case you aren't familiar with it, in case it's been a while since you looked at it. But for newcomers, it's part of the blue folder that newcomers and new members all get. Communities are made of people. And people, in case you didn't know already, we are imperfect and we are messy. No matter how beautiful our intentions, we will disappoint each other. We will mess up. We will fail to live up to our values and our ideals. And sometimes that hurts, especially when we had hoped this would be a place where something like that wouldn't happen. And that's why, in addition to our covenants, the board is working on a right relationship team, not to enforce perfection, but to help us find our way when the rhythm of the piece fails or when the trail becomes unclear. The role of the right relationship team won't be to shame or exile someone. It's not going to cancel you. It will be to help us slow down, listen, and guide one another back into right relationship, not just with each other, but also with our values and the promises that we hold together. UUI's new vision statement captures the importance of covenant, where it says, "Together we strive to create a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world through collective action and shared ministry, committed to living our values and holding one another in covenant." This is more than just some nice language. It is a spiritual path that arises out of and builds on where UUI comes from, on the courage it took to start this congregation and on the persistence it has taken to keep going, on the changes it has experienced over the years and the future that may be possible, on the deep care that so many of you have put into this congregation in the past and today. UUI's commitment to covenant shows up in the behavioral covenants we revise when we learn new things because the terrain changes. It shows up in the right relationship team we're forming to guide us back when we break our vows. It shows up in the everyday ways that we listen to one another, apologize, forgive, and try to do better. That is the sacred work of being covenantal people, to trust that with care and with love, our shared ministry will keep unfolding, imperfect, beautiful, and real, and that together we can transform this world. May we remember the covenant is not something we recite, but something we return to again and again, even when we're tired, even when we've fallen short, even, and most especially, when we've broken our vows 1,000 times. May we travel this terrain together with courage. May we learn to improvise with grace, and may love be at the center of all that we do. May it be so. May we, together, make it so.
Each month, UUI gives half of the Sunday collection to a cause chosen by our Social Justice Committee. This month, the Share the Plate offering will go to Trinity Haven. Based in Indianapolis, Trinity Haven is Indiana's first residential program specifically for LGBTQ+ youth ages 16 to 24 who are experiencing housing instability. LGBTQ+ youth are at a much higher risk of homelessness, and many avoid traditional shelters because they fear discrimination. Trinity Haven steps in to meet this urgent need with inclusive, supportive care that truly makes a difference. Their services include long-term transitional housing, short-term host home placements, and personalized support, including case management, education assistance, healthy meals, mental health support, and life skills coaching. Your donation empowers LGBTQ+ youth to build stable, independent lives. To give, use your smartphone and text the donation amount along with the word SHARE to the number in your bulletin or on the Zoom chat. You can also give at uui.org. For those here in the sanctuary, the ushers will come around with collection baskets. We now welcome your offering with gratitude. May it be given with a spirit of generosity and joy. Thank you so much for your generosity. Our closing words today are from Bert and Carly. Cheered by our community, blessed by our covenant, uplifted in mind and renewed in spirit, go forth with courage and peace to meet in the days to come. Amen.
Please rise and bow to your spirit as we join together singing hymn 347, Gather the Spirit. Gather the Spirit, harvest above. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of His love. Our trial in this light appear all the same. Gather
Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words on the screen and printed in your order of service. And now we extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the light of understanding, the warmth of compassion, or the fire of commitment. Let us keep those with us until we meet again. Go in peace.